Okay, we are right at the 7 o'clock mark, so let's go ahead and kick things off. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Out of the Woods, Growing Income from Your Forest. Thanks for being here with us this evening. My name is Lindsay Kazarek, and I am the Communications Associate for the Appalachian Program here at Future Generations University. I will be your host for this evening's program. And I am going to be joined by two of my amazing colleagues, Margaret Donnan, who is our Youth Education Associate, and Casey Withers, who is our Community Education Associate. Both of them will be telling you a little bit more about themselves during our presentation this evening, so I will hold off on doing that. But a few housekeeping tips before we get started. If you have a question or a comment that you would like to add to the presentation or ask this evening, please feel free to add that to the chat or Q&A box, and you can find that in the bottom portion of your screen. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Margaret.
Excellent. Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. I'm particularly glad you're here to talk, hear a little bit more about youth education because, as Lindsay said, I'm the Youth Education Associate. So while Casey works on pulling up those slides, I'll just go ahead and walk you guys through some of the topics that we'll be talking about tonight. So we've had several exciting youth education initiatives happening at Future Generations recently in partnership with lots of fantastic people, and we'll talk a lot about those partnerships as we go through this presentation. So we'll kind of start with one of those initiatives, which is called Sprout School, and I'll walk you all through what Sprout School looks like. There are several different components to Sprout School. We've got virtual biweekly meetings, there are learning labs, in-person gatherings, and one-on-one coaching, and we'll go into a little bit more depth on each of those topics. And then from there, we'll give an overview of the Maple in the Classroom program, which helps pre-K through 12 students learn about the amazing world of maple trees, particularly here in Central Appalachia. And then I'll turn things over to Casey, and Casey will talk a little bit about the work that he's done in Maple in the Classroom and the work that he's done with with farm to school work more broadly. And I'll explain what farm to school means for those who aren't familiar with that term.
Can you not see the presentation?
Yeah, I can see slide one, and you can go ahead to slide three if that works. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so as we've now heard twice, I'm Margaret, the Youth Education Associate, and a little bit about me. Part of why I love doing this job is I fell in love with being outdoors at a really young age. If you see that photo on the top left-hand corner of this slide, that's me with my granddad. We're out mowing the lawn and just riding around the farm. Um, and yeah, my grandparents live on Summerfield Farm, which is down in Grayson County, Virginia, and grew up thankfully getting lots of fun produce from the garden and from neighboring farms and thinking about cooking with that in the kitchen. So in the bottom left-hand corner of this slide, you'll see my mom and my grandma. And that propelled me to William and Mary, where I studied biology and got to continue to think about the amazing wonders of the natural world. And I in the photo that you see toward the right, that's me holding a little milkweed plant. That was the focus of my research. I was really interested, and I'm still really interested in the importance of pollination and the importance of milkweed as a habitat for our monarch butterflies as caterpillars. So after studying biology at William & Mary, I decided that I wanted to keep going in the world of environmental education and have bounced around a little bit in that exploration and landed here at Future Generations University, where I am thrilled to work on the variety of initiatives that we're going to share with you all this evening. So we can go on to the next slide. All right, so like I said, we're going to start with Sprout School. So what is Sprout School? Sprout School is funded by the Northeast Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Professional Development Fund, Northeast SARE, as abbreviated. And we're really grateful to them for making this program possible, because it's just been more incredible than I could have possibly anticipated. And I'm really excited to get to share some of the creative projects that folks have come up with you all this evening. But before we get there, we're going to walk through some of the other components of Sprout School. As I mentioned earlier, the virtual biweekly meetings, youth garden support network gatherings, learning labs, and one-on-one coaching. And we do all of these things together to serve these primary goals. So we're helping to show folks what Central Appalachian agriculture looks like, supporting K-12 educators interested in bringing ag activities, youth gardening activities, environmental education activities into their classroom and communities, and then empowering all participants to get students excited about their community's agricultural potential, and linked to that, entrepreneurship opportunities, STEM, like I said earlier, environmental education. The world is, the world is vast. So if we would go on to the next slide, I'll go into each of these individual components. So first one, we have these virtual biweekly meetings. So this is our inaugural Sprout School cohort. I feel lucky that Lindsay is a part of it, and her project is amazing. At the end, if you all want to ask her about it, I'm sure she'd answer some questions, not to put you on the spot. But in these meetings, we cover a variety of topics. So we kind of started with an overview of what farm to school is, and then we've talked about food access. We've talked about the history of farm to school in West Virginia. We've talked about youth garden curricula, nutrition curricula. We have had some fabulous guest speakers. In week 8, we had Andy Pence, who's the school nutrition director for Fayette County, West Virginia, and he walked us through what his role looks like, and also some of the farm to school work that he's done down in Fayette County. And we also earlier on had Aaron Nyer as a guest speaker, and are thrilled to welcome more people as we keep going and exploring a variety of topics centered around nutrition, agriculture, environmental, and garden-based education. So these meetings allow participants to connect with each other. They're really great opportunities to catch up on Sprout School projects, which I'll go into in more detail in just a minute. And also, just provide a little bit of base knowledge that people can build from and implement in their learning labs. Before we get to learning labs, we're going to do our in-person gatherings. So we can go on to the next slide. Which brings up farm to school, which is a key piece of the virtual meetings and the in-person gatherings, and a phrase I've just said but haven't adequately explained. So farm to school began as a national movement in the 1990s to think about several core pieces of bringing local food and knowledge of local food into schools. So it can look like a variety of things, but there are always one of these 3 central components. So education, school gardens, and school procurements, or school procurement, so bringing food. to local schools. And the motto of the National Farm to School Network is that kids win, communities win, and farmers win by forging these partnerships and helping kids see the benefits of sourcing local and learn more about healthy food. So that's Farm to School. On to the next slide. Yeah, great. So we had our first in-person Sprout School gathering this spring. So we mostly meet online, but it's exciting when we get to bring folks together in person to do a training. So yeah, I'll walk you all through the photos that you see here. In the top left-hand corner, we're doing some nutrition activities. So there was a segment of the day dedicated to that. And I would be remiss if I did not mention Jenny Totten, who is the brainchild behind Sprout School and has done farm to school work in the state of West Virginia and across Central Appalachia for many years, and is an incredible mentor to me and has been a huge resource in the design and implementation of this program. So I'm really grateful to have Jenny as a collaborator. So Jenny is helping to make some snow peas, stir fry, easy, just a little bit of snow peas, a little bit of mint, put it on the stove. You've got a healthy snack. And we were grateful to have our own taste tester for the training. One of our Sprout School participants brought her daughter, Ada, and you can see Ada there, a fan of the snow peas. So that's good. And then in the bottom left-hand corner, we're making some kale chips. And those kale chips are the kale was locally sourced from Pocahontas County, which is right beside us in Pendleton County. So then we'll pop up to the school garden activities in the top right-hand corner of this slide. So this is an activity from Junior Master Gardener called the Know and Show Sombrero. I love this activity. It's a great way to teach kids about the needs of plants. So what you do is you make a Know and Show sombrero with newspaper and put the masking tape around the newspaper to make a custom fitted hat on the spot. And then it's a challenge to kids to use different materials that educators have in their classrooms, in the spaces where they're working, to represent the different needs of plants on these hats. So Shelly, on the front, you'll see she's got a bunch of curlicues, and that was representing the nutrients that plants need to survive, which I thought was really fun. Ted on the far right side has a piece of yellow paper representing the sun. So people got really creative with that. And it was a good opportunity to train folks in how to do those activities so that then, they can do them with the different groups that they're working with. We also had a locally sourced lunch with lots of great things from Pocahontas County and Linwood Market. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, we made some nature windows, which is we just went hunting outside and found fun natural items and put them between two pieces of contact paper. So we had this first one at our office in Pendleton County because we've got a fair amount of folks who are participating from the Eastern Panhandle in West Virginia and the Potomac Highlands. But we've also got people are spread out all over West Virginia participants, and we've even got a few outside of that zone, and those so our next one will be in the Charleston Huntington area so that we can try to pick spots to get together that are convenient for people. Okay, we can go on to the next slide. So our learning labs are another piece of this program, and the learning labs are designed to help participants think through the process of community change as they implement Sprout School projects. So Casey's going to go into a little bit more detail about a theory of community change called seed scale, and that's what a lot of our work is based in here at Future Generations. So the different learning lab topics, they start with asset mapping. And for this one, our participants actually made a physical map of their communities And the community can be a variety of things. Maybe it's your town, maybe it's your school, maybe it's a local garden. So the maps were, we had a wide range in what people chose to represent in their communities, and then kind of draw on this map different resources that could be utilized to think about doing a project that is collaborative and sustainable. And that's the big idea behind asset mapping and seed scale as a whole, in thinking about projects that will help make a difference and help make a lasting difference. So by first identifying the assets in the community, participants can start thinking about building teams that help leverage those assets and designing a project that helps leverage those assets as well. And so that's that third step, is the Sprout School project proposal. And I'll give some examples of those projects in just a minute. And then as people implement their projects, we get regular updates from them, which is great. And then there are some additional learning labs as well. And those learning labs help. Maybe they're not doing a project that's designed around procurement, but still a good thing to know on here, in West Virginia, for example, how to have conversations with child nutrition directors to start thinking about doing some local sourcing. And we have several farmers who are participating in the program, and there are different levels of familiarity about selling to school systems. So that helps think about local sourcing, both from the school's perspective and from the farmer's perspective as well. And then there's an opportunity to design a school nutrition activity. And then as we get into July and August, this Sprout School cohort will begin to wrap up their projects, and we'll get to hear some reflections on those, which I'm really looking forward to. So speaking of those projects, we can go ahead and jump into several. So this on the left side of this slide, this is Shelly and Lydia. And Shelly and Lydia work for Refresh Appalachia over in the Huntington area. And they are doing a neat project called Blossoms and Bites, exploring plant dyeing and edible flowers. So you'll see some of their flowers growing on the right side of this slide. This event is going to happen in June, and the idea for it started with their asset map. So they had a conversation with the Huntington Children's Museum. And the Huntington Children's Museum was like, we would really love to do a program with you guys. And we've had folks who are interested in natural dyes. And they're like, no way. We have also been talking to people who are interested in natural dyes, but don't have a lot of information about it. So that was a great starting partnership there. And yeah, I'm going to be really excited to see how their project comes together in June, and we'll look forward. I'm sure you'll see some photos from our social media channel, so we'll look forward to sharing those with you guys. Another great example, I just think this project is so cool. So this comes from Emily Church. She works at Snowville Creamery, and she's designed a project that's based around developing several lessons in this curriculum called Good In, Good Out. So Emily had several interests. She's really interested in socio-emotional learning, and then obviously really passionate about the work that she does at Snowville Creamery. So she's like, how could I connect socio-emotional learning and agriculture and my work at Snowville Creamery? And out of that, Good In, Good Out was born. So she's in the process of developing those lessons. The first one centers around introducing students to the creamery. So she's created a virtual tour of the creamery. And then the second part of that is that they read this book called The Calf on My Farm, and that thinks about what cows need to survive. And then she's using that to launch a conversation about what is good to put in our bodies, what keeps us happy and healthy and alive, which I think is a great link. And then her second set of lessons, she's thinking about strategies for just, stress reduction and attention retention and just adding some short like little exercises in the classroom. And out of this, she found Muga, which is maybe it's Moga, I don't know, but it's cow yoga, which I think is fantastic. And you can see the cows doing a variety of poses on the left side of this slide. So she's going to do that with the students. And like I said, the rest of the lessons are still in development, but that's a big project for the summer, and she's looking forward to rolling those out in the fall. Yeah, so that's an overview of the different pieces of Sprout School, helping educators get the resources that they need to implement some kind of agriculture, environmental science, garden-based learning project in their classrooms. And I meant to mention this at the beginning, but there is a stipend that participants receive to implement their projects. And there's also a stipend for participation in the program. And again, that comes from funding from Northeast SARE. So we're really grateful for that to help make these fabulous projects a reality. Okay, so no one chose to implement the Maple in the Classroom curriculum in this Sprout School cohort, but it is an option that people can take advantage of, because when we think about Central Appalachian agricultural production, it doesn't always look like, the classic example of cows in the field, or kind of the large scale land-based agriculture. Sometimes it happens in a forest, agroforestry. And so Maple in the Classroom is designed to teach kids a little bit more about agroforestry, particularly maple syrup production. And this curriculum serves a variety of age groups. There are 6 lessons for pre-K through 2, 3 through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. These lessons are all currently aligned with West Virginia college and career readiness standards, but the plan for the fall is to work on aligning these with other Central Appalachian states as well. And within these lessons, students get the opportunity to watch celery change colors in an activity called the Rainbow Celery Experiment. And that teaches how sap flow works in trees. And they also can use their senses to observe the natural world on a nature walk and trace leaves to learn what a maple leaf looks like, because learning what maple leaves and maple bark looks like is critical to first identifying a maple tree, to then be able to tap it to make maple syrup. So they're all ways to help students discover forestry and STEM, and using the fun of maple science and maple syrup sampling to do that. So we're thrilled with how this curriculum has come together. And utilizing this curriculum is not limited to the Sprout School program. As it says in the bottom blurb there, in the next few months, these lessons will be added to our website. But if you're interested in using them sooner than that, you can reach out to me and we can get you connected. And Casey's going to go out into a little bit more depth about the Maple in the Classroom program in practice, and talk a little bit more about the resources available for tapping trees and actually making syrup with students.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you, Margaret, and good evening, everybody. So I'm Casey Withers, and I'm the Community Education Associate at Future Generations University. And I'll give you a little bit of background about myself and some of my experience with farm to school education and the Maple in the Classroom program. So I worked with Hillsborough Elementary School, and that's in Pocahontas County, and that's where I'm from and where I currently live. So I went to Pocahontas County High School, graduated from there, went to West Virginia University, and got a Bachelor of Science degree in Environmental and Energy Resource Management. But whenever I was at WVU, I started working at Mountaineer Boys and Girls Club, which is just part of the Boys and Girls Club of America program. And they're a nonprofit organization. And kind of starting from that point forward, I've got about 10 years of experience of working with nonprofits now. And it's mainly been around community engagement and community development, outreach and education. And my previous employer before I came to Future Generations was High Rocks Educational Corporation, another nonprofit based around youth education in Hillsborough. And I did some youth agriculture work there and managed some local food programs. And I had worked with Hillsborough Elementary School in that realm, so I had some familiarity there. And we had a rapport and relationship with myself and the principal and some of the teachers there. And I know Erin Nair was mentioned earlier, and she works with West Virginia Food and Farm Coalition and WVU Extension Family Nutrition Programming. So I just wanted to start there a little bit to build some of this background of whenever I worked at High Rocks, we worked with Erin and the family nutrition programming in Hillsborough with the elementary school. So we were within walking distance of the elementary school there, and they were able to come over, do hands-on activities with us, get their hands in the dirt, rotate through a lot of different activities. And that was kind of my start to really digging into some of this youth ag education work. And you can see a lot of pictures here of some of the Maple in the Classroom, that classroom activities that we were doing with Hillsborough Elementary School. And as you can see, they're drilling their own holes into the trees and tapping in the taps and hanging up the buckets. They were really doing most of the work. And just to give you some background and framework on kind of how we approach community development at Future Generations University is the seed scale methodology and the academic side of the university. We offer one master's program, and that is the Master of Arts in Applied Community Development. And Lindsay and myself are working through classes, trying to attain that degree. And I will definitely emphasize the applied part of that because I'm able to work here full time in the Appalachia program, and that's where Lindsay and Margaret and myself work. And it's really great to be able to, as you're learning this theory of community development, be able to actually apply it directly to what you're doing at your job in real time. So I really appreciate that, and I'll jump through some of these principles right now, which once again, I really appreciate this first principle of building on success because it's really easy to kind of look at any community that you're trying to engage and work with and be like, oh, here's a problem. Let's try to help fix this. And that's one way of going about it. But a lot of times that I've been involved with that approach, it's been an uphill battle and really difficult. But if you can find things that are already successful, but they just kind of need to be propped up from some gaps that need filled in, and you and your organization can step in and help build that success up a little bit more, that's really kind of the starting point of seed scale. And then moving down to the second principle, really big on forming three-way partnerships, and no worries on getting caught up on the lingo this evening of bottom down or bottom up, top down, and outside in. But I just definitely want to mention this three-way partnership portion because it has been really, really crucial to all of the youth agriculture farm to school work that I've been involved in. And making decisions based on evidence rather than opinions. So Margaret kind of showed a little bit of that evidence of the farm to school movement that's happening. And we're in a lucky position to be able to kind of work directly with the Department of Education and the Department of Agriculture in West Virginia, who are both really supportive of trying to boost up farm to school efforts in the state. And then this fourth portion, just trying to kind of focus on that transformation of behavior change rather than only focusing on the output of services that you're providing. And one part of this fourth portion of seed scale is this whole process is always going to be iterative. So this is the pilot of Sprout School. It's the pilot of Maple in the Classroom. And we're going to build on what was successful, strengthen our partnerships, look at the evidence that's there and make decisions based on that, and just kind of keep circling through that process and keep building on success. All right, so some of those themes of success from my experience that I'm going to focus on today, and I've alluded to some of them already, which is those three-way partnerships and starting small, not doing too much too fast, and excuse me, building trust. So with the Maple in the Classroom, if you are trying to do that and implement that in a school in your area or in with any youth in your area, these are the materials that you would receive from future generations, which is a drill bit, it's 10 taps, you're using buckets, you'll get 10 buckets to collect your sap in, and they come with lids, 2 food grade 5-gallon buckets to kind of take your buckets off the tree and get put them into a bigger collection point of the 5-gallon buckets, cheesecloth for filtering, an electric kettle for boiling sap, spoon, candy thermometer, another filter, and some mason jars. And those are the materials you'll get. And this three-way partnership, this was a really crucial part of what I've seen with Maple in the Classroom, because I just want to run through some of the dates of, so I did this with Hillsborough Elementary School this year, and we worked with Hillsborough Maple Works, which is a local producer there who has worked with Future Generations University quite a bit on different research projects. So there was a lot of familiarity here across the board with every organization. I had worked with the producer before, I had worked with the school before. So that kind of also alludes to just like that building trust. I had some cachet and some trust with that school, so it was nice to be able to step in. A lot that might take some time if you're new with working with the school system. They have a lot of things that they have to get done, so there's not a whole lot of free time to just kind of implement random projects. But as Margaret said, this curriculum that they've put together is aligned with the state's education standards. So anytime you can make it easier for the school to implement your project, that's going to be very helpful. But we tapped the trees at the school property on February 7th, and by the evening of February 8th, I had a message from the principal saying, things are going really well, but they're actually going too well. We've filled up your 5-gallon buckets and we're kind of collecting too much sap. So that was a good problem to have, but that's where I was saying this three-way partnership was crucial, because Hillsborough Maple Works, the actual maple producer in the area, they make kind of daily sap runs and collections, because where they're tapping is not all in one spot, so it's a little bit spread out. And they were passing the school every day whenever they were already picking up their sap. So they started just making one extra stop through the school and started collecting their sap, and basically ended up just kind of boiling that in their evaporator. So the school didn't really make a whole lot of their own syrup in the classroom because they were collecting so much sap, it would have taken them so long. So that's where if you're trying to do Maple in the Classroom, having a local producer is going to be a key part of that. So starting small, this guy to the left, this is Chris Grimes. He runs Mountain Cajun Getaway here in Circleville in Pendleton County, and they're another producer that we've worked with pretty extensively, have a lot of trust in and good rapport with, and they live right beside an elementary school. I think it's called North Fork Elementary School, and Chris's wife is a retired teacher and she volunteers at that school every day. So once again, that school has a lot of trust in Chris and Melissa, and they're within walking distance of the school. So that location and this wasn't necessarily asset mapping, but it kind of falls into like knowing where your assets are at and how close is everything spatially and what's actually feasible and doable. But I would say with starting small, you don't want to take too big of a bite too fast. Don't rush it. Make sure that you have a plan in place. That's one good thing about Maple in the Classroom and Sprout School is they'll definitely, make sure that you have a plan, make sure that you have curriculum to move forward with. Yeah, so whenever I first started with Maple in the Classroom, I had this idea of I wanted it to be Pocahontas County schools, all 5 schools in the county. And I think that we will get there one day, but being able to start small with one small elementary school was pretty crucial. And Chris and Melissa, they started with one grade, one class. So even if you're doing gardening, maybe just start with one raised bed and grow some flowers. Once the teachers and the students start getting involved and engaged and seeing the progress of what's happening, there's pretty quickly a lot of buy-in. But yeah, that's Mountain Cajun Getaway. I had mentioned them just now. Chris and Melissa, they had done Maple in the Classroom with one of the K-5 grades in Circleville. And my work with Hillsborough Elementary School, they were actually really excited to do this. And we tapped trees and collected sap with K-5, but there's only one grade per class at that school. So it was about 80 students in total, which I say that's starting small, but it was a little bit of a scurry at times to kind of keep up with everything. And I've alluded to this a lot, but once you kind of start to work with these schools and the producers and everybody gets comfortable with each other and you start to build trust and you've had a plan, you started small, you come in and kind of execute what you wanted to do, you analyze it, kind of go through that seed scale process of what went well, let's build on that, let's strengthen our partnerships, let's see what went well and didn't go well, look at the evidence, kind of make some decisions moving forward based off that, and just keep iterating that process until you get to where you want to go. And let's see. So this was the school at the Sugar Shack in Hillsborough. And yeah, so we tapped trees on February 7th. The school was already so excited and engaged with this type of work and this project that by March 5th, they had visited the maple producer Sugar Shack, and they want to keep doing this every year and keep building on what we've started. And this was March 21st that this article came out about kind of what we were doing there. And I kind of show that to basically say this all happened really, really quickly. I mean, there was a lot of front end work that went into kind of setting this up and making it happen. But especially with Maple in the Classroom, once you kind of tap the trees and the sap starts flowing, it's kind of full throttle ahead. So yeah, just kind of pointing out that from the time we tapped, a month later, they were already doing a field trip to the maple producers Sugar Shack. And a month and a half after we tapped, there's already a story in the local newspaper about what we were doing. So that was pretty cool to see. And it's a pretty invigorating feeling for me because I have a shared experience with a lot of these students of kind of growing up in that area. And I remember visiting a small scale maple producer that we did bucket taps on trees, and got to see that process, and that really kind of stuck out with me. I remember it to this day as an adult, so it's been really cool to be a part of kind of giving back and being able to facilitate those learning activities with other students. And I think that's pretty much all I have for now. So I'm going to kind of turn it back over to Margaret and Lindsay and let them take it from here.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Casey. I always love hearing about Casey's experience doing Maple in the classroom. And if you are interested in working with the Maple in the classroom lessons, feel free to email me. My email is on this slide. You can also find it on our website, and we can help you get connected to those and even help think about fostering connections to local producers. So then additionally, if you're interested in Sprout School, we've got a second cohort that will be launching in September. So that's so exciting. And we would love for you all to be a part of it if you are interested in some kind of agricultural, outdoor education, garden-based learning activity. We can help you all get some resources to get that going. So without further ado, I think we'll put it to you all in case there are any questions. And while I'll give you all a second to formulate questions, you can type those in the chat, or you can, I think there's an option to raise your hand and ask those. Am I right about that, Lindsay?
Yes, you can either type your question into the chat box or the Q&A box if you would like, or you can raise your hand and we can unmute you and you can ask your question live if you would prefer to do that. But while we are waiting for folks to ask questions, I have a question for both you, Margaret, and Casey. Since you both have been very active with youth education and outreach here in the Appalachian region, what would you say are your three biggest takeaways from your experience thus far?
You want me to go ahead?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think two of them will definitely be kind of what I was alluding to whenever I was talking there about starting small, making sure that you have a plan ironed out. Definitely don't try to do it all yourself. Lean on those partnerships that you're able to form. And yeah, I think those are two of the main ones. And then I'll just kind of default to what I said for the third one of building trust, which, you know, that can take some time, but I think they all three kind of play together and are integrated at times. But yeah, starting small, building trust, and leaning on your partnerships.
And I'll echo that partnership piece. One of the most exciting parts of Sprout School for me has been the opportunity to connect to folks all across West Virginia and then hear about the connections that they're making in their communities. So I think that collaboration is so important. I think, you know, keeping an open mind, being curious and listening to what other folks have done. I just having the opportunity to learn from other people and the projects that they have implemented in their communities, or just hearing about what the landscape of their communities looks like through that asset mapping component has, really made me think about the possibilities for my own community. So yeah, be curious, listen to other folks, and collaborate. I think that would be my three.
Awesome. So Casey, how did you go about engaging with the producer? If someone has never started that conversation, what does that look like?
Well, with my previous role at High Rocks, we were almost kind of playing the role of the producer, but in both instances, whether it was at High Rocks or my time with Future Generations, everybody kind of knew each other, so there was that baseline level of um, yeah, basically we all knew each other. I know it's a little bit harder for me to answer that question, but basically I would kind of probably start with that asset mapping and just kind of see who's around, who's doing what, um, just kind of taking a pretty casual professional approach of, hey, this is what I have in mind, and it kind of falls back into the starting small, having a plan. If you're able to kind of communicate to a local producer that you've never worked with, but you're interested in bringing, like, forming partnership with them, being able to kind of clearly communicate what you want to do and how you want to go about that, and what you want the outcomes of that to be. I think that would be kind of an important role to get somebody on board with you that you haven't worked with before.
Great, thank you. Margaret, what about you? In your experience, what has worked well for you in starting those conversations and engaging the outside community?
Yeah, I think it's been the opportunity to be in a variety of communities. I got to meet several of our participants in the Sprout School cohort, and kind of we got to connect with folks for the first time at a conversation last fall in Morgantown to talk about farm to school work across West Virginia. So, as Casey said, just having the opportunity to meet people and hear about the work that they're doing and think about how the work that we're doing could potentially help enhance what they're working on has been, yeah, has been really beneficial. So, yeah, same thing. It was great when I remember Mel and Chris in January, as Casey said, Mel of Mountain Cajun Getaway works in the school at North Fork, and we already had the idea of, like, how can we do something, and the fourth grade teacher Becky Hebner was on board, and that energy helped make a really successful project. So we just keep saying it, but that's because it's true. Collaboration and being open to having conversations with people, I think, is key.
Yeah, that's amazing. We have a question here from Sarah, related to what we're talking about right now. So how do you see this youth work affecting ag in our region moving into the future?
I can start, and then if you want to chime in, feel free. But the biggest thing that I see is kind of this nutrition education that's being paired with the agriculture and local food movement. All of this farm to school, the the core elements of that. One of them kind of being the nutritional aspect and kind of imprinting that into young people's minds at an early age, and hopefully that is a lasting thing of, especially in an area where it is, we have a lot of food deserts around. There's not a lot of fresh local produce, and being able to kind of show how much more of a nutritional punch this fresh food can bring into your life, and the health benefits of that, I think, is probably one of the biggest lasting things that will happen and be an outcome out of this type of work.
Yeah, I think the health benefits are so important. I also think about my own experience. Getting to be on my grandparents' farm was one of the things that propelled me to study biology and turn that into a career. And so my hope is that as students get exposed to, like I said, the wonders of maple production and how cool trees are and how important it is to protect our planet and how you can grow your own food and how tasty it is, that those will be skills that will help them shape their careers or just shape their extracurriculars outside of their careers, and hopefully, do some farming on the side. Maybe, as Casey said, start small, do it at a farmer's market scale, and then think, or do it at a neighborhood scale, then a farmer's market scale, and then think about it on a bigger scale. Just the idea of getting more kids knowing about agriculture, what it looks like in our region, so that they can grow up and be maybe producers or maybe consumers that help support this local agriculture because they know the importance of it.
Yeah, those are all really important things and amazing outcomes from these programs. So we still have some time for some more questions, so we'll give folks some time to filter those in. As a reminder, our next webinar will be on Thursday, June 20th, right here on Zoom at 7 p.m. We will be having a special pollinator webinar during the month of June. So we hope to see everyone back here for that. Margaret and Casey, is there anything else that you would like to add while we are waiting for some last minute questions to funnel in?
I don't think that I have a lot to add. What about you, Margaret?
Yeah, me either. Thanks again,
Oh,
folks, for being here.
sure. Yeah. Sarah asked if I could talk a little bit about my Sprout School project. I absolutely can. So my Sprout School project is a local project here in Pendleton County. It is going to be located in Franklin at the Potomac Highlands Recreation Center, which is also known as the bowling alley to the locals. So there was a space that was adjacent to the bowling alley that had previously been used as a mini golf course, and they had taken that out and it has just remained vacant. And I spend a lot of time at the bowling alley, and I just got to thinking about how that space could be better utilized. And so I talked to the bowling alley, and we came up with a plan on how that space could be used to create a dye garden. And so I will be using a container garden style for that space because they do need it in the month of September for a local festival that we have here. So it will need to be moved out of there, but I will be growing strawberries and blueberries, yellow and red onions, hibiscus, and things of that nature. And then we will be making natural dye out of all of those fun things that we will be growing. And the kids will get to make natural dye and learn how to make tie-dye. And then we will be selling that at our local farmers market. So it was pretty fun stuff. I'm pretty excited for it.
Yeah, really fun stuff. I told Lindsay before, and I stand by. I loved tie-dye as a kid, and I think to do tie-dye with plants, that would have just absolutely blown my mind. So that's amazing the way that's all come together.
Yeah. And so I have some of the berry plants started here at my house in Brandywine, and we're going to be getting some more here in the very near future. And I think it's just going to be a good time. All right. We still have time for a few other questions if there are any. Oh, wait, we have one in the Q&A. Do you have any advice for maple producers specifically that want to get involved with our local schools but do not know where to start? Many of the examples you listed were more from an educator's standpoint. So, what about from the producer standpoint? Casey, do you want to start that off?
Sure. I think once again I'm going to sound kind of like I'm on repeat, but I would definitely kind of look at the landscape of your community, look at the assets that are available there. Are there organizations that are doing education work, but they're not a producer, and somebody that, once again, kind of looking for a partnership that you can form with someone to form that three-way partnership between the school, the producer, and some sort of entity that's willing to help facilitate and implement and coordinate the curriculum that is available through Maple in the Classroom. So that would kind of be my main answer to that is don't try to do it all alone and just try to form partnerships with whatever organization that you see fit, whether that's extension, a local nonprofit, a retired teacher, future generations, whatever that may look like in your community. I would look to form a partnership. That way you kind of have three entities going at this together rather than trying to shoulder it alone as the producer.
And I can add on to that. We are planning to do some Maple in the Classroom trainings in the fall, and that'll be good opportunities for both producers and teachers to get a better idea of what the curriculum looks like and think about what, from a teacher standpoint, what might work in their communities. And I think, as Casey said, thinking about making that connection, maybe it's a visit to the school, maybe it's an email to the admin. But just thinking about reaching out from the producer standpoint, and we'll have some trainings in the fall so that actually looks a little bit more concrete.
Yeah, and I will say one way to kind of maybe build some excitement about that if you're a producer and you're trying to get into the education realm is share some of your syrup with the school, like donate a little bit of syrup, kind of get them a little jacked up on sugar and build the excitement a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can add on to that. On Monday, we had the opportunity to go to Rock Branch Elementary School right outside of Charleston. And we did syrup samples with K through 5, which was great. And oh my gosh, the amount of kids that were so excited that we make maple syrup in West Virginia was off the charts. And so I think Casey's right. Bringing some syrup is a good way to get kids excited, and teachers love that kids are excited, and it's a good gateway into talking about a variety of scientific topics, and we detail those scientific topics in the Maple in the Classroom lessons.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And one other thing that I would add to that is that if you are a maple producer and this is seems very intimidating to you, please feel free to reach out to Future Generations University. You can email us at syrup@future.edu, and we are happy to help walk you through this process and help introduce you to educators that would be willing to work with you. Casey, did you want to add something else?
Yeah, just really quickly, with the Hillsborough Elementary Maple in the Classroom, whenever they visited the producer's sugar shack, the producer used the sap from the school and made syrup, and then had little like personal, I'll say personalized, but personal, small, very small bottles of syrup that each student got a little bottle of syrup to take home that was made from the sap that they helped collect. So that was a pretty cool part that I didn't mention, and it was kind of similar with Mountain Cajun Getaway and North Fork Elementary School. Whenever they came over, Chris and Melissa served them some pancakes and sausage and used the syrup that they made from some of the sap that the school had helped collect. So being able to kind of share that product with them, I think, is very, very crucial, like conclusion part to the whole the whole process of that project. And just noting on the agriculture, food, forestry, those are all really great ways to engage students and get them excited about learning. And that's all I had to add there, and we can move on to the next question.
Awesome. Yeah, it looks like we have one last question. And that is, are there any liability concerns to having children come to my farm? Can you explain a bit more about how that looks? It can be a bit intimidating to potentially expose the family farm to legal risks.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in the example of Mel and Becky, they made permission slips that the kiddos took home to their parents, and so the parents would sign off that it is okay to walk to Mel and Chris's property to tap the maple trees and to visit the sugar camp. So having that permission from the parents is a really critical piece of doing any type of field trip.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, a permission slip signed by the parents, liability waiver is definitely crucial. There's always some risk whenever you're stepping onto somebody else's farm. So yeah, I would say that that's definitely a major issue that you need to kind of take care of beforehand, and mixed kind of with whatever type of insurance coverage you have. But maybe even more importantly than just general liability insurance that you have on your farm, getting that liability waiver signed by the parents is definitely crucial.
Absolutely. And I'll add on to that too. Sometimes kids will not have permission to take photos. So if you're interested in photographing the kids while you're at the farm, you just want to check and make sure with the teacher that the parents have given that photo permission.
Great point, Margaret. That is a really important thing to highlight, especially from the communication side of things. Always something that I am interested in knowing. Well, we are just past 8 o'clock, and I think that we have one more question. Jacob wants to know, will we come out and help run some tap lines? Jacob, if you email us at syrup@future.edu, we can discuss the logistics of that. I think we have answered all of the questions now. Thank you, everyone, for spending the evening with us here on the Out of the Woods webinar. As I had mentioned, our next webinar will be on Thursday, June 20th. And we hope to see you all back for that webinar episode. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening, and we will see you all later. Thank you.
Thank you.